We are back at Cracks in Postmodernity. Today we have Gordon Glasgow, who came all the way down to Bay Ridge to meet with me in person. Very gracious of him. You biked all the way down here, so thank you very much for coming on.
It's nice to be with you.
So we're sitting out at this cafe, a very Greek cafe here in Bay Ridge, watching all the passersby. Quite the scene. You might hear some background noise. But anyway, so Gordon is a writer primarily and has a very interesting Substack where he does these 12 question series with different writers. It's a format, that I find very intriguing. But before we get into that, I want you to tell us a little bit about your own background, what you studied, and how you really jumped into writing.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in New York City. I studied in California in the UC system, and then I went to NYU Tisch. I did my bachelor's there and a master's as well. But I actually dropped out of the master's a few years in. Actually, 2 semesters in. I studied film at Tisch, and I originally wanted to be a film director. I was really into, auteur cinema, the sort of French New Wave stuff, a lot of the Romanian New Waves, singular voice, directors who wrote their screenplays and had a strong sense of narrative control. So I always had an idea, even since high school, that I would go on to make those kinds of movies, but I kind of got really into theory when I was at NYU in film theory, and I found a lot of the production courses to be banal and the kind of stuff where it was sort of ridiculous that you'd need a professor's hand to teach you. It's the kind of craft that you could learn in a YouTube video. I mean, I think I'm 94, so I'm the last year of millennial, but I still sort of grew up with the internet, not quite as much as people a few years younger than me, but I still was of the DIY mindset because I had YouTube throughout high school, and I had just kind of the infinite scroll. I was starting in 8th grade, 9th grade, so a lot of the production courses at Tisch really frustrated me because I don't know, I just didn't see the point in people paying money, or even if you're smart enough to have gotten a scholarship to go there, it felt like a waste of time. It felt like a better time to just go on set. And I did go on set a lot, and going on set frustrated me just because of how long things took. So, directors have to spend months and months raising money to shoot something, and then they end up spending maybe a year and a half, 2 years, sometimes even longer if they're a new director, just to tell one story. Whereas if you're a writer, you can play with all sorts of complex narratives and tell multiple stories within 2 or 3 months. So it just felt like you could do more in a shorter period of time, and it catered to my impatience a little bit more. But because of my annoyance with the production courses, I gravitated toward a lot of the theory. There are a lot of really interesting professors in that realm. And film or literary theory is interesting because you're always trying to describe the indescribable. I think you're manifesting these emotions about complex observations and feelings that a film or a book gives you, and you have to create a narrative upon that. And I think that my time in those courses gave me the ability to structure thoughts and structure a series of sentences, rhythmic series of sentences based on things that were hard to articulate, but nevertheless emotions that were there. And then I realized I was good at it. I just had a talent for it more than I had a talent for spending hours on set and creating films or stories that way. I think there is such a thing as being a multidisciplinary artist, but all I know now is that I love to write. I love the repetition of perfecting sentences and creating narratives that way, and making things that read really smoothly and evoke complex emotions in my readers. But it's not to say one day if I had the freedom I wouldn't like to make a film. But I still have this feeling that making a film just wouldn't be as rewarding. There's something. It is what Jordan Castro said, actually, when I interviewed him, is for whatever reason, he can't explain it, writing's the only thing that excites him. And for me, writing these narratives, whether first or third person, when it really works, and you're really able to get your ideas down, there's nothing like it. And then, yeah, that process, there's nothing like. And then knowing that people are reading it is something extra that feels really, really great. And I've only started to get more attention from my writing over the past year or two. But to be honest, even when like I had like 20 readers, it was still the same. Yeah.
Would you say there are any films or directors that inspire or have inspired your writing?
Yeah, there are a bunch. I mean, I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I don't know if I'd say he'd inspire my writing. I mean, I'd like to Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, which is like a movie that a lot of people I feel like shut off like after an hour. I think I watched that movie 8 times.
Wow.
Because of the kind of novelistic slow burn of how he explored the relationship between De Niro's Irishman character and Pacino's corrupt union man. There's something about the way that narrative specifically unfolded. I mean, it's so annoying to say Martin Scorsese, because I actually didn't like Killers of the Flower Moon. I thought it was good, but nothing special was going on. But I really thought that the exploration of characters in The Irishman was one of the more, and also the way he played with Italian Americans versus Irish Americans, and that specific dichotomy was unique. And I remember just watching it over and over and being inspired by how he just like slowly revealed more about each character, and it was a masterful narrative. Other directors that I would say have inspired, it came to mind. I have to think for. I mean, Abdul Latif Kashish is really great. He's a good French filmmaker. I really like Ruben Östlund, but I don't know if it inspires. I mean, anything good you see that touches something in you or opens up to you will in some sense, if it evokes an emotion, then it'll lead to a good writing or an inspiring feeling to write. Pedro Almodovar. That's the I don't know how. I knew there's a big one that it was probably he's probably the main sort of inspiration, I would say, from film to writing, because his narratives are so sprawling, so all over the place, and they go through so many different genres, and he has such a sense. He's not trying to do anything. He's just so utterly himself, and he's his confidence and assurance, and how he plays with characters, how he plays with colors. Again, I mean, it's so filmic. It's the opposite of playing with language, but I think Almodovar more than anyone.
Favorite Almodovar film?
Talk to Her.
Why?
Habla con ella. Because why is Talk to Her a great movie? the feeling of the relationship between this guy who works at the hospital and his mother and the woman in the coma. It was just so unique. I've never seen anything like it. And then there's, I don't know if I want to spoil the plot, but there's a redemption at the end. And basically this guy rapes the woman in the coma, and that ends up being the thing that the terminated pregnancy ends up being the thing that brings her out of the coma. Then he goes to jail and then kills himself. And I was just thinking about that brilliant narrative arc to end this crazy story. Gives me chills. I mean, it's just so. It's the kind of writing that could only exist when you know that Almodovar, when he was writing the script, he was bringing something emotional out of himself, trying to bring up this complex perspective on justice and human relationships, and you could tell he didn't know where he was going. And as the story progressed out of him, this is where it went. This is where the plot went, and it feels so natural. I think you could tell when you're reading something or watching something if the artist didn't know where they were going as they were writing it or making it, and you get that sense with Talk to Her. And I think the positives of being able to be aware that an artist or a writer doesn't know where they're going as they're writing it is that they're naturally discovering something about themselves and about the world around them as they're creating something, and then as the audience or the viewer, you're discovering that with them, and you're on that trip with them, and you arrive at that destination the same way they arrived when they were making it. And I think that's part of the definition of artistic transcendence. You're arriving somewhere new, and it's complex. You don't know exactly what it is, but you can feel it. And I think Talk to Her is so good. Well, what's your favorite?
Oh, that's hard. Well, my first Almodovar film was Volver, which, like, I saw that when I was maybe 13, and I didn't really get it until when I majored in Spanish literature for undergrad, and I ended up writing a paper about it and, like, did a bunch of research, and that was when I first started to actually get him as an artist. But then later on, I don't know, like, I like Law of Desire, I like Women on the Verge, what was the other one? Todo sobre mi madre, all about my mother. We watched that like twice in some of my classes. But I don't know, I mean, he's crazy and I love it. I love the Freudian stuff. I love these dynamics between women, mothers. I don't know. There's so much, but I love that he does it so artfully with the colors, the red, all this
The red.
it's, I don't know. There's just so much there.
I feel like I should also mention Rainer Werner Fassbinder and Wong Kar-wai. Wong Kar-wai, because of the scattershot ways he puts his stories together. You could tell it's purely driven by emotion, and then any sense of plot and story comes second, which I really, really love. But still, it comes together because it's so singular. And then I think Fassbinder, and his sort of repetitive devotion to telling really, really personal stories. The best one is Fox and His Friends. I don't know if you saw Fox and His Friends. It's about kind of like a part-time gay prostitute who gets involved with the gay bourgeoisie, but he's working class. And then the gay bourgeoisie in Germany in the 1970s just sort of slap him around and totally take advantage of him. Oh yeah, the big narrative or the big plot line is that he wins the lottery, and then upper middle class, sort of somewhere between petty bourgeois and bourgeois, factory family. One of the gay sons falls in love with him after he wins the lottery, or fake love with him, and just exploits him and convinces him to put all his lottery money into his dad's failing printing business, and then discards him when he has no use for him anymore. It's sort of a tragedy, but it's a really good movie. Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah. So then I also wanted to ask you, when you said that you started to get into theory, what writer specifically caught your interest?
Work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction. It was Benjamin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was Benjamin, and then Adorno, and Bazin. I liked a lot too. A lot of Adorno wrote a lot about the relationship between writer and reader, and artist and audience, and as filmmaking was starting, the filmmaker in the audience, and I don't know if it was Adorno or Bazin, but one of them said that the narrative is in the eye of the audience or the reader, not the storyteller or the filmmaker, and that opened my eyes to the possibilities of what a writer can do. Because if you write well and you write lyrical, and you keep someone engaged by being amusing and interesting, and you don't take the reader's attention for granted, in terms of plot and story, you can go wherever you'd like. You don't have to pay so much attention to development or plot. All these things come naturally and unconsciously, because if you pay attention to your craft, sentence by sentence, the reader will put things together on their own. So it really, that was like one of the bigger theories that interested me.
Interesting. Okay. So let's get into your writing now, specifically these 12-question interviews. Where did the idea for this come from?
I was engaged to a woman in Montreal. We were together for several years. I called off the engagement in August 2023, a little over a year ago, and then I moved back to New York because I was in Berlin for a while, then I was in Montreal, so I hadn't really lived in New York since going to NYU. And I came back, and while I was away, I wrote tons of short stories. I wrote a novella. I was publishing a lot, but I wanted to do something that was it was very internal. And then also during the COVID years, everything felt very closed. So I wanted to do something that was more social and collaborative with other artists. And it wasn't consciously a way of wanting to get into any scene or get into any world. It was more a way of just escaping myself a little bit. And yeah, I think I unconsciously just wanted to have this cross collaboration, let other artists in, and find a way to get out of like the hermetic bubble that a writer could easily find themselves in. I was never so interested in just like a straightforward interview, but I thought that if I wanted to talk to other writers, I wanted to find a way to really just get to know them out of my own personal interest, reaching out to writers I really admire or writers I just want to get to know better, asking them 12 questions in a written way, and seeing how they play with language and their answers would be something interesting for people to read. And then the first one I did was with Matt Gazda, and he's a fantastic writer, and he's a craftsman, and he's very devoted. And I wrote a long intro for his interview, and my intro sort of confirmed the discrepancy between how other people saw this trendy downtown figure and who he was inside, and how people misconceived him. And I had this quote from Borges about how every good writer at the end of the day is a good person. And I found that true with Matthew Gazda, and I explained why in comparison to what, was the buzz around him and all the things people made up just because he found himself in this trendy world that he didn't even necessarily ask to be part of. So the intro was long, and I tacked it on, and then he said what makes your interviews unique is the interview themselves, and people are interested to see how the writers answer your questions, but the intro, because most intros for interviews, people just sort of say, this is what they've done, this is what I thought of them, and here's the interview. But there's a lot more you can do with that, because and you can explore the relationship between journalist and subject, or interviewer and interviewee, and whatever dynamic is going on there, and or transference, as they say in psychotherapy. So there's this sort of like endless possibilities of what you can do with that dynamic. So as that one evolved, I think they became more. I started to go deeper and deeper into that relationship. Yeah.
But no, I think it's fascinating that, like, especially considering how much, I guess, podcasts are kind of the default mode of interviewing people nowadays. It's interesting that the fact that you're talking to these writers, you're doing it in this written format, and that you're kind of you're engaging them in the space where they're, I guess, most themselves, most comfortable, and that's, certain things can emerge in that format that probably wouldn't in a spoken interview. But I'm curious, like, what do you get out of getting to talk to people in this capacity? Because, like, I can just say for me, like, part of why I started podcasting is that I just wanted to talk to people who I found interesting, and it's something very, I don't know, like, it feeds me in a way. It feeds my creativity. It gives me a lot of ideas. But for you, yeah, like, what do you find that you're getting out of these types of conversations with people?
I think I get like everything. I think that there's 3 types of relationships in life, especially if you're in the creative world. I don't know what creative means anymore. It's kind of a made-up term. But if you're an artist, to just get rid of the pretension of that word right off the bat. If you're an artist of any kind, if you work in the realm of self-expression, 3 relationships. The 3 relationships that you have are your friends, your family, and then the uncanny bonds that exist between you and other artists. And the other artists you meet and collaborate with are not necessarily your friends, they're not necessarily your family, but you have at times way more powerful connection with them because you're both trying to do something similar, and you both understand each other in a way that your friends and family may never understand you. And that's not to say that you'll interact in the same way or care for each other in the same way, but these interviews have opened up that third pathway of relationships that's very key and very vital. And surrounding myself with other talented artists and learning from them and speaking with them and connecting with them, and that cross understanding of each other and recognition and witnessing of each other gives me strength in my own perspectives, and I think it gives them strength as well, because it's genuine and the bond is genuine. So I can't say specifically how it's made me like a better writer, a stronger person, but it's been, I mean, at the end of the day, all a human can do for another person is witness each other. So for you to witness another artist and for an artist to witness you and to understand and respect what you're both doing, and get to know the process of how you do what you do, is very valuable. I think no matter what, even if I only did 1 or 2 a year, I'm never going to stop doing these interviews, because ideally I do like a lot of books, and then I do like 3 or 4 of these a year, and the ones I do are really, really important. Now I'm doing a lot more because I have more time, but I'd never want to stop doing them. I think they're really, really fascinating.
Can you say more about what you mean when you say witnessing each other? What is that? Yeah, like what does that really mean to you?
Part of the really, really torturous thing for a writer is existing in solitude. I always thought I was an introvert, but now I don't know, because I love being around other people, and that's sort of an arc I've had in my life. That's sort of a change I've realized in the past 5-6 years. And I think that at the same time I need a lot of time to myself to reflect and think. I think one of the reasons a lot of writers write is so they can portray their internality to the outside world, and for it to be witnessed, and then for that to be witnessed, they can continue. So your question is, what do I mean when I say witnessing?
Yeah.
As in, like, how I define witnessing?
Yeah.
Recognition that your singularity exists. From a very religious way, I think that each person has a unique soul and a unique spirit that compels that soul, and it portrays very, very unique characteristics, personality traits, and everyone feels that they have that. And I think everyone needs that to be seen by someone else, whether it's a romantic partner or beyond family. I think a romantic partner or a friend or an audience, at different scales, based on how much they like to show their personality or how strong their personality is. But you need that to be seen. You need someone to witness who you are and what you're doing. And if a human doesn't have that, I mean, companies take advantage of that, and they call it community. I think community is now a business word, so I hate that word. But if you don't have that witnessing, then you're dead.
Yeah, wow. This makes me think of Martin Buber and Levinas.
Martin Luther, you said?
Buber.
Oh, Buber.
Yeah, and Emmanuel Levinas, Phenomenology. Yeah. Also makes me think of, there's an interview with Welbeck where, like, he just stated very bluntly, he just wants to be liked. Which, I mean, you could read in a narcissistic sense, but I just think it's a very simple statement, but ultimately, we want to be seen, we want to be affirmed, and yes, that can devolve into, like, chasing after fame and people's approval, but, like, on a very basic human level, I just think, yeah, it's true, like, there is this need for recognition and to know that my existence, what I'm living, matters, because I can value myself, and that's great, but, like, we were made for relationship. We're made to be seen and affirmed by others in order for our sense of selfhood to be fulfilled. I don't know. So I think the way that you're framing it, yeah, it's very interesting, because I don't really hear people talk about. I don't hear people talk that way very much. I don't know.
The more I socialize, the less I feel a need to write. But the writing I publish, I mean, I still write every day, but the less I just feel like this, like, need to get out all of my all my thoughts. Like, the more I socialize, I don't have that angst, or that compulsion as badly. But my writing's way better because what I write is more meaningful, and it's not just like this burst of neurotic attitude. It's more general form and theory of everything that's been going on and everything that I've been thinking, from a more holistic perspective. So the writing's way stronger if I socialize more meaningfully.
Yeah.
People, you could also socialize, I think, gratuitously, right, and have a lot of interactions that don't do anything for you, which is a shame. But if I socialize a lot meaningfully, people I really love to be around very consistently, then yeah, I have less of this compulsive itch to write, but I've noticed that my writing's way stronger.
So you're fine with writing something and like having no one see it?
Like
You don't feel like something's wasted?
I don't think something's wasted because it's a way to rationalize my purpose in the day. Just to say, okay, I think this is my vocation. That's why I'm here. This is my craft. So in that sense, no, but ideally someone reads it.
Okay.
Even if it's a letter to one other person.
Yeah, I definitely feel that anxiety that like I need people to see it. Maybe, I mean, yes, definitely in a narcissistic way. I know that's there, but also like if I put my heart into something, if I'm saying something that I think is important, like I do want to share it. And more importantly, like I always say this, like if people if people see that I publish something and they're like, oh, congratulations, and I'm like, no, I don't want congratulations. I want to know, what do you think? Like I want this to generate a conversation. I want it to be of use, of value to other people, which is part of why like I have that anxiety. But I don't know, it's a thing for me. Do you feel that need to like, yeah, like I hear what you're saying about the need for recognition, but like, do you want to know that your writing is of use or of help to people as well?
What I feel like my writing's of use and of helps people. One thing I wrote recently, someone reached out and said they started bursting out into tears in the middle of work. They were just reading it on their phone. But to be honest, no. Like, I care that people are reading it, and it's really nice to hear that it adds value to people's life or purpose people's life. But that path just then I don't know. Then you start thinking of yourself as a philosopher, or you start thinking it's too close to. It's not. I don't know, for whatever reason, it's not the reason I write. The reason I write is more. Like I say, there's a compulsion to create narratives. I find it really interesting, and I want to be witnessed. And if it's adding value to people's lives, then it helps in the realm of giving people of serving my own purpose in society. Like sometimes I think a lot of artists or writers, as part of what do you call it, the scammer complex, or what's the term again? Not inferiority complex. Imposter syndrome. Yeah, aside from imposter syndrome, you just feel like useless. Like there's people managing the water system, or there's people, making a difference in the world on a day-to-day basis, and often you just feel like a piece of shit, like you're not doing anything. Oh, I'm writing these words and people are reading them. So if someone reaches out and said, oh, your essay on this made me feel less alone, then it makes me feel like I'm not useless.
Yeah.
So that's a plus.
Yeah. I think for me, like what I want most is for people to help people to like clarify. Like if someone says like, okay, so this thing you wrote helped me understand whatever situation better, to think about it more clearly. But even more than that, I want people, the biggest compliment to me is like if my writing made someone laugh like that. I don't know, I'm not a fiction writer, but the few times I've done that, like I try to do humorous stuff because, I don't know, I just feel like with everyone, we take ourselves very seriously, and I think like one of the biggest charities to someone is to make them laugh, and like,
But it's funny you say that, because you know why I think readings are really in right now, and why I think readings are way more interesting than stand-up comedy shows, is because readings, when they're funny, it's almost effortless. It's like a proxy of someone trying to say something that they're trying to let out, and then they played with language in a funny way, or their delivery was unexpected. a lot of great writers who are funny aren't necessarily trying to make you laugh on a page-by-page or sentence-by-sentence level. They're just naturally funny in the way they express themselves. And I love the Welbeck quote that style is the summary of one's flaws. And that's all style is. So, my perspective, I don't try to have a style. I just write the way I write, and it comes out a little wonky, and some of the turns of phrase come out in an unexpected way, and then that makes people laugh, and that feels really rewarding. And I think when people go to readings and they laugh, it feels way more genuine, and it's closer to art than stand-up comedy, because stand-up comedy is a script that comedians will practice over and over again, night after night. It's a different art form altogether, but the goal is to make people laugh every 3-4 seconds. Whereas I think our goal is to portray a certain emotional perspective onto someone else. And then if that emotional perspective that's very genuine can make someone laugh, then that's like the most rewarding thing. And I think the audience finds that really, really fulfilling. It's closer to art, I think, or whatever art is.
Yeah. So you enjoy going to readings then?
Well, no, because there's a lot of crap. But
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It can be very sterile.
Yeah, but when it works, it's great.
Yeah.
When you go to a great reading, Christian Lawrenson's an amazing reader, as everyone knows. And when he reads his own work, you get an even greater sense of how unique and funny he is as a writer, because you understand more what he's emphasizing. He's one of the best readers. David Sedaris is also an amazing reader. Very funny. In terms of like Lower Manhattan, Dime Square readings, there's a lot of crap, a lot of bullshit, a lot of people just doing nothing but trying to serve their own ego. But that's everywhere in every art form, in film or visual art or whatever. Like, I don't know. When you start thinking about how shit everything is, I think it's the first step toward self-destruction as a writer or an artist of any kind. I really think it's important to. I really think it's important to be optimistic and just focus on what's good. I can very easily go down the path of negative thought and only focus on how much of a poser everybody is. But then that's how I think of everything, and then maybe my stuff won't be as good either. So yeah.
Okay. So that being said about readings, what do you see happening on the literary scene and literary world right now? What direction do you see it headed in?
There's a lot more. I think. I don't know if there's a lot more, but you could see that there's more literary fiction being published by writers who may not have been published 5-10 years ago because they don't necessarily have broad market utility, but some publishing houses are trusting that their voices might come through to a broader audience in a natural way, even if it's probably not going to be what ends up paying the bills. What ends up paying the bills for a lot of publishing houses will be Michelle Obama's memoir or an actor's memoir or something. But they're starting to, I think, put some money aside for some new voices. I'm not so in touch with like what's going on in the publishing literary world, to be honest. I have some good friends who have gotten book deals, and I'm really, really happy and proud of them, or proud for them. So, I don't know, if people are getting book deals, that's great. At the same time, merit is not just, right? So, there's always thousands of writers who are fantastic and just don't know how to market themselves, and they might never have a book published. So, it's impossible to say. Like, you might know better. What is the trend? Are things going in a positive direction?
It depends where we're looking. Like, I see, I forget who wrote this essay for Liberty's Journal about sanctimony literature, but I don't know, basically, like, trauma porn and, like, just, like, kind of identitarian stuff seems to be phasing out. I think people are tired of it. I don't like seeing so much of this, like, reactionary stuff, the irony-pilled, like, it was nice, it was served a purpose at a certain point, but, like, now I'd like to see some substance that, I don't know, you can't rely on being, like, on the shock factor, on being politically incorrect for that long. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. But whether it's so, on the one hand, you have the irony porn, shock factor, non-PC stuff, and then on the other hand, you have the trauma porn, diverse voice, super PC stuff. On either way, both of those things are both fads. I mean, Welbeck said a writer's role is to press the wound of society. I don't know if that's necessarily true. And on the other hand, I don't think it's a writer's role or an artist's role to cater toward political trends that will be economically profitable for them. I think both ends of the spectrum get really, really boring really fast. That's not to say there's a couple writers in each field who do it better than anyone else, and they usually lead the trends, right? There's one writer I'm interviewing now called Matthew Davis. He's a few years younger than me, and I honestly found him really, really annoying when I was interviewing him, and I found him very rude. His first book is called Let Me Try Again. It's not bad, and it's not great either. It's a good first book. But he has this kind of irony-driven confidence about it, and he doesn't speak, and he's incapable of speaking just straightforward and genuine about it. That's what I'm exploring in the intro now. At the same time, I'm not just saying this to be polite. I have a lot of respect for Matthew. I think it takes a lot of guts to write a whole book. It takes a lot of discipline. I think he's a nice and funny guy, but I also just found myself so frustrated with his addiction to not saying anything straightforward or sincere, and that's what I'm exploring in the intro. Is when not saying something straightforward or not being able to just be earnest in any way, how takes over, how that happens, what's redeemable about this guy. I'm going to publish it in the next couple of weeks, and I want to be light and delicate because at the same time I don't want to be one of these writers that goes after someone or is mean to someone, because then you isolate yourself, and then no one wants you to interview them, and then they think, oh, you've just unnecessarily had it out for someone, and then they say, and what's even weirder is that you're doing it for free. So they think that I want to go after him. So I'm trying to be really delicate with how I approach this intro, because I think Matthew's a really cool guy, and I think it's cool that he has a book out. I think it's a good book. I think people should buy the book. But there's something about, like you said, the irony pill and the lack of earnestness. And also, I think the manipulation of religion to meet their own ends, which I find a little bit stupid. And I mean, he goes on and on about being a member of the Vatican II and his relationship with the Catholic Church. And at some point, you begin to wonder what's genuine, what's not, and if he even knows himself. And I think that's true with a lot of downtown writers. But like I said, I could get really, really negative really fast. So it's better to focus on the positives. And it's great that young writers like Matthew are getting published. And I want to see more of that, whether the book is bad or great or mediocre or somewhere in between.
Okay.
Is that a little controversial?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I like people like Jordan give me hope. I like what Jordan was doing because it's, I mean, a little bit of irony, but has a lot of substance and so well executed. I really like also what Nicolette Pollock, his wife, did.
I'm interviewing Nicolette now.
That's great.
She's great.
No, really, yeah.
I asked them.
You read the book?
I just finished it.
I see a lot of. I hope that inspires a lot of people, because what she did was aesthetically gorgeous, like the writing, but also like morally. I was just like, wow, like what a human, like just very wholesome in a way that's not overly earnest, but just like organically wholesome and beautiful. I don't know, so things like that. You were gonna say?
I asked Nicolette if she thinks her and Jordan are carrying a religious burden that they didn't ask for, because they've become sort of like the voices of new religious sincerity within literature and art in the downtown scene. But I think rightly so. I think they're both very talented.
What I want to ask you now, though, is so like, what would you like to see come next, or what direction do you want literary scene to go into at this point?
And what exactly do you mean when you say literary scene, or how would you define that?
Literature in general, fiction in general.
Whether it's fiction or non-fiction, or literary fiction or non-fiction, I think that the definition is pretty much for a writer to explore what's true beyond all the smoke and mirrors of everyday life. But thanks so much. But I think in order to understand what's true beyond the smoke and mirrors of everyday life is to understand yourself behind how you interact with the world and the things you might not be honest with yourself about. It's not to say everyone has to write nonfiction and say it so explicitly, but I think what's personal is the most creative, and a deeper understanding of oneself leads to stronger work. So it's more for people to drop whatever. It's more. There's a woman yelling at her son, which I like, in Brooklyn, in Bay Ridge. And maybe he'll be an artist because of that. I think it's for people to drop whatever pretensions they have about themselves, considering what scene they're in or their desire to be liked, and when they explore that more deeply, and I'm not even saying the platitudes of like going to therapy and all that. It's just more just whether it's religiously or therapeutically or just exercising more, however one gets there. It could be jerking off a lot. It doesn't matter, but understanding how you interact with the world and what drives you and compels you to do certain things or your own compulsions and why you act certain ways. And not being afraid to be raw or genuine about any of that, whether it's through a fictional or non-fictional means, because we talked earlier about adding value to people's lives, or people being touched, or people being interested in reading your work, and I think that's what makes people feel touched or have a sense of value or feel interested or related to your work, is when you're brutally honest emotionally about how you see things, and you're not afraid. I think that's the definition of fearlessness. I think that's what a lot of artists fail. Is they don't want to be emotionally fearless. They're interested in how they're perceived and the coolness of their surroundings and the coolness of the scene or whatever, or the coolness of the marketplace, how they can sell. If you drop all of that and just worry about being honest in an uncomfortable way, then the best work will come out. And I think it's as simple as that, but it's also the scariest thing to do. So it's never going to happen on a grand scale, because but if I had to wish for something, or for the best work to come out of everyone, then that would be the wish. And also to stop producing work just for content's sake. I mean, there's a line, you have to do it to exist, but to really write things because you mean them, and you have something to say. And having something to say is like I said, it's just being completely brutally honest with yourself emotionally. That's all something to say is. And then you aestheticize it in your own manner, whatever that is. But yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate, what I perceive to be your optimism about these things, but also, I don't know, like there's something refreshingly genuine without being like overly earnest in an annoying way. Like, I don't know, there's something refreshing about your kind of take, and I appreciate that you're doing these types of interviews that, again, in this written format, really captures something about the essence of a writer. I don't know. So I strongly suggest people check out your work, your Substack. Any other things you want to plug?
In relation to what I just said, I was thinking of one of Jeff Dyer's strongest essays. Jeff Dyer is a great... is he British or Irish? I don't want to say British when he's Irish. Or Jeff Dyer. No, he's English. He's from a small town in Yorkshire. That's Cheltenham. He's from Cheltenham. They're famous for their spas. One of those English spa towns that everyone knows about. Jeff Dyer's most brilliant essay, in my opinion, or one of them, is about him going out for his 11s. And 11s is, I guess it's a British thing, close to tea time. It's like going out for a little snack around 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. And an obsession that he developed over a donut plant while he was living in New York. And it's as simple as that. And he writes about his routine and donut plant. And then through that very, very small world, you learn so much more about him, because it's one aspect of his routine. He loves this donut, and he becomes obsessed about having this donut at the same time every day and where to find it when certain bakeries run out of it. You learn everything there is to know about him, and it's that simple. And he's not trying too hard to make himself sound cool or interesting in any way. That all comes naturally. So, yeah, I just think for other writers, or for something I tell myself, is just don't try hard to be interesting. Just find the particularities about yourself and explore them. because if you're honest, they will be interesting because they're relative to other people. I'm working on a book now, and hopefully it's going to be done in the next month or so. It's about a misanthropic food columnist who was sort of a failed novelist that became a food columnist for like a BuzzFeed-esque publication. Similar to that. If I'm going to plug anything, it's called I Prefer the Inside. So look out for it. It'll be my first proper novel. I Prefer the Inside. We'll see when it comes out. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Gordon, thank you for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, I love your work, and I love what you're doing, and I also love the sincerity without trying too hard. Just you're interested in certain things, and you like things as they are. I think that's very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.